I still remember the sound of his voice that night. Low, calm, familiar. The kind of tone that once melted me effortlessly. Come home, Elena. Be my wife again. Those words, they had the power to stop my world. For a long moment, I thought I'd misheard. I was sitting on the edge of my hotel bed, holding my phone like it was something sacred. Outside, the city lights blurred through the rain-soaked window, 1,000 reflections of a past I couldn't seem to let go of. Adrian. Even after everything, his name still made my heart stutter. It had been a year since I left. A year since the man I'd loved since childhood turned into a stranger I couldn't recognize. We'd built everything together, a marriage, a dream, an empire. Or so I thought. But one betrayal shattered it all, leaving me lost, small, and terrified of the person I'd become. Someone begging for love that was never meant to be mine. And yet, here he was again, calling me. I don't understand, I whispered, my voice trembling as I pressed the phone closer. Adrian exhaled slowly, that familiar sigh he used whenever he was pretending to be vulnerable. I made mistakes, Elena. I miss you. I miss us. Come home. Let's start over. Start over. The words echoed in my mind long after the call ended. I should have known better. I should have remembered the coldness in his eyes when he signed the divorce papers. The way he didn't even flinch as I walked out of the mansion that used to be our home. But the foolish, broken part of me, the one that still loved him, whispered maybe this time would be different. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror, my reflection almost unfamiliar. My long dark hair was tied neatly, makeup subtle, the faintest hope softening my tired eyes. I packed my suitcase carefully, as though I were preparing for something fragile, something sacred. When the car pulled up in front of that house, our house, my heart clenched. Nothing had changed. The white marble pillars, the blooming roses along the path, even the golden nameplate that read, The Graysons. My name used to be beneath his. It wasn't there anymore. I hesitated before stepping out. The housekeeper opened the door, her eyes widening slightly. Miss Elena. I smiled faintly. It's all right. You can just call me Elena. As I entered, the scent of Adrian's cologne filled the hallway. It was maddeningly familiar. Crisp cedar wood with a trace of bergamot. The smell that used to linger on my pillow, long after he left for work. Adrian, I called softly. I heard footsteps. Slow, confident. And then, there he was. Tall, elegant, handsome as ever, dressed in a charcoal suit. His dark hair was slicked back. His sharp jawline softened only by the faintest smile. For a heartbeat, the world stilled. Elena, he said, walking toward me. You came. Something inside me fluttered. Hope, maybe. Foolish hope. He took my hand. His touch was warm, but I felt the unfamiliar chill beneath it. I knew you'd come back, he murmured. I smiled weakly. You said you wanted me to come home. I do, he said, voice low. We can start over. I'll make it up to you. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. He led me toward the living room, and that's when I noticed the second pair of heels by the couch. My breath caught. Before I could ask, a soft melodic voice filled the air. Adrian, darling, the caterer said the cake is ready for pickup. She froze mid-sentence when she saw me. A woman. Tall, poised, beautiful, long blonde curls cascaded over her shoulders. Her eyes darted between us, confusion flickering into something smug. Oh, she said sweetly. You must be her. Her. Her words were daggers disguised as politeness. I turned to Adrian. Who is she? He hesitated for a moment. Too long. Eleanor, this is Celine. She's helping me reorganize the house. It's complicated. Celine stepped closer, resting her hand casually on his arm. We're engaged, she said with a bright smile. The wedding's next week. My mind went blank. I looked at Adrian, waiting for him to deny it, to explain, to do something. He didn't. He just looked at me with that same calm, practiced expression, the one he always used when he wanted to control the situation. "Elena," he began softly, "you left. I tried to move on. But when I saw you last week, I realized I still cared. I thought we could at least make peace. Make peace." My voice broke. "You told me to come home and be your wife." He exhaled, guilt flickering briefly, before fading into indifference. "I didn't mean it like that." Celine laughed softly. "Men do say things they don't mean when they're nostalgic." Her words sliced through me like glass. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at the two of them, the man I'd once given everything to, and the woman wearing the ring that should have been mine. The world felt too quiet. My heart was a roar of pain I couldn't contain. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm, frighteningly calm. "You called me here for closure," I said. "But all I see is cruelty." Adrian stepped closer, his expression tightening. "Don't make a scene, Elena. It's not worth it. Not worth it." He'd said that once before, when I begged him to choose our marriage over his ambition. I nodded slowly. "You're right. It's not worth it." I picked up my suitcase, turned, and walked out, my heels echoing against the marble floor. I didn't look back, not once. Outside, the rain had started again, cold and relentless. I stood there, letting it soak me, my tears indistinguishable from the raindrops. Somewhere behind me, I heard Selena's laughter, and Adrian's muffled voice. It didn't matter anymore. Something inside me, the part that once clung to him, died right there on that doorstep. Later that night, I checked into a small hotel. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't open. His, hers, even old friends who'd chosen sides long ago. I sat by the window, watching the city blur into streaks of silver and gold. I whispered to myself, never again. And yet, a tiny part of me still ached. The naive girl who once believed in forever. Days turned into weeks. The tabloids buzzed with photos of their engagement party. Adrian and Celine, the perfect couple, all smiles for the cameras. I tried to ignore it. I buried myself in work, in silence, in anything that could keep my thoughts from circling back to him. But pain has a way of finding you. Even when you hide. I started getting anonymous calls, threats, rumors about my company's finances, my father's old firm, the one I'd been trying to revive, suddenly faced lawsuits, betrayals, and silent sabotage. And then one morning, I saw the headline, Grayson Corp. Acquires Windsor Holdings, my company, my life's work, gone, and the CEO behind it, Adrian Grayson. That night, I sat alone in my office, surrounded by empty coffee cups and broken dreams. "How could you?" I whispered into the empty air. "Wasn't it enough that you broke me once?" The storm outside was brutal. Thunder shaking the glass, lightning flashing like a cruel spotlight on my pain. I stumbled out into the street, numb and drenched, my vision blurring, as the world spun around me. A car's headlights cut through the darkness, bright, blinding, and for a fleeting second before impact, I thought of him again. The man who promised me forever and left me with nothing. I closed my eyes and whispered, "If there's another life, I won't love you again." The world went silent, and everything faded to black. Darkness. That was all there was. No sound. No warmth, no light, just silence. It felt like I was floating in nothingness, suspended between pain and peace. Somewhere, faintly, I heard voices, calling my name, "Elena, stay with us." But my body didn't move, my lips didn't part. The sound faded, replaced by the slow echo of my heartbeat. Fading, fading, then nothing. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free When I opened my eyes, it wasn't heaven. It was a hospital room. Cold, sterile, and far too bright. The nurse glanced at me, startled. "She's awake." My throat burned. Every muscle ached. But the first thing I saw was a bouquet of white lilies beside the bed, my favorite flowers. I reached weakly toward them, then froze when I saw the card. It wasn't from Adrian. It was unsigned. "Rest well, Elena." It said in neat handwriting. "You deserve peace." For a moment, I stared at it, tears welling in my eyes. Peace. The one thing I'd never known with him. But peace was fleeting. The doctor entered soon after, his tone polite but distant. "You've been in a coma for 3 days. The accident caused internal bleeding, but you're stable now." I nodded faintly. My voice was barely a whisper. "Was anyone here?" He hesitated. "No. We tried contacting your emergency contact, but the number was inactive." I already knew whose number that was. Adrian's. A week later, I was discharged, physically alive, but emotionally hollow. My apartment was empty. My business was gone. My name was ruined. Online headlines screamed betrayal. Adrian Grayson's ex-wife exposed. Fraud, lies, and scandal. They painted me as a manipulative woman who'd stolen from her own company. All lies orchestrated by the man who once whispered love into my ear. Every door that once opened for me was now closed. Investors withdrew. Friends avoided my calls. Even my distant relatives refused to answer. I had no one. I sold what little I had left. Jewelry, clothes, even the bracelet Adrian once gave me. Every time I looked at it, I remembered his words. "You don't need luck, Elena. You have me." Now I had neither. Days blurred into nights. I rented a small room above an old bakery downtown. The smell of bread and coffee greeted me every morning. The only warmth I had left. Sometimes I'd pass by luxury magazines at the corner shop. His face was everywhere. Adrian Grayson, the golden CEO, arm around his new wife, Celine, smiling, always smiling. It was like I never existed. One evening, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. The woman staring back was a ghost. Pale skin, lifeless eyes, a shell of someone who used to dream. "How did I become this?" I whispered. I remembered the girl I used to be, full of hope, believing love could conquer anything. I used to think he and I were meant to be, that the universe had written us into each other's stories. But maybe I was just a chapter in his, and he was the ending to mine. A few months later, I received a wedding invitation. "Mr. and Mrs. Grayson invite you to celebrate their marriage." It wasn't meant for me. I knew that. It was probably sent by mistake to my old address. But still, when I held it in my trembling hands, I couldn't breathe. I imagined them walking down the aisle, the same way we once had. The same vows, the same promises. Only this time, spoken to someone else. Something inside me broke completely that night. I took the invitation, tore it into tiny pieces, and threw them out the window. The pieces fluttered in the wind, like white butterflies disappearing into the dark. That's when I realized there was nothing left to lose. I didn't plan it. I didn't write a note. I didn't call anyone. I just drove. It was raining again. The same cold, merciless rain as the night he replaced me. The city lights blurred behind the streaks of water on my windshield. At a red light, I whispered to myself, maybe it's easier this way. Maybe this pain doesn't belong in this world anymore. The light turned green. I pressed the accelerator. The headlights came out of nowhere. Blinding, fast. A screech, a crash, then silence. The world faded once more. But this time I didn't fight it. I thought of my mother's smile. The scent of roses. The warmth of the sun on a spring morning. And then, nothing. Only a strange, weightless calm. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in a hospital. I wasn't in heaven. I was in my old bedroom, the floral wallpaper, the books on the shelf, the little wooden desk where I used to study. Everything looked exactly as it had 10 years ago. For a moment, I thought it was a dream. Then I saw the calendar on the wall. April 14th, 2015, my engagement day. I froze, my heart pounding so loud it hurt. I looked down at my hands, smooth, unscarred. My engagement ring glittered softly. No, I whispered. This can't be real, but it was. I was back. Before it all happened. Before the betrayal. Before the lies. Before the accident, the universe had given me another chance. Tears filled my eyes as I sank to my knees. Thank you, I whispered, trembling. This time, I won't waste it. And then, a familiar voice called from downstairs. A voice I hadn't heard in years. Elena, breakfast is ready. My mother. I rushed down the stairs, nearly tripping in my haste. There she was, alive, radiant, humming softly as she poured coffee. She smiled when she saw me. You're up early today, my sleepyhead. I threw my arms around her, burying my face in her shoulder. She laughed softly. What's this? You're not usually this affectionate. I just missed you, I said, trying to hold back tears. She didn't understand, of course. How could she? To her, I was just her 25-year-old daughter, days away from her engagement to the man she thought was perfect. That night, I sat by my window again, staring at the stars. The air was warm, the world peaceful. Everything felt so alive, so painfully alive. I pressed a hand over my heart and whispered, this time I'll live differently. I wouldn't let him ruin me. I wouldn't lose my company, my dreams, my dignity. I would rewrite everything. And if fate dared to cross paths with Adrian Grayson again, he would be the one left speechless. Because this time, I wouldn't love him. I would make him regret ever losing me. When I woke up the next morning, the sunlight filtered gently through the curtains. Warm, golden, and unreal. For a long moment, I just lay there, listening to the faint chirping of birds outside my window, wondering if this was still a dream. But it wasn't. The world had really turned back. My body felt lighter, my skin untouched by years of stress and grief. My phone on the bedside table was an older model, the kind I hadn't used in ages. When I unlocked it, my suspicions were confirmed. The date, the messages, the missed calls. Everything was exactly as it had been years ago. I was truly reborn. At first, I didn't know what to do. My hands trembled as I scrolled through my old contacts. Names that brought a rush of bittersweet memories. Friends who'd later betray me. Business partners who'd disappear. And him, Adrian Grayson. I hesitated before opening our message thread. The last text from him was there. A simple one. Can't wait to see you tonight. Big surprise. I knew exactly what that big surprise was. He'd proposed that night at the garden restaurant by the lake. I remembered how his smile had looked under the fairy lights, how my heart had nearly burst with joy. But that night, the same promise had been the first domino in a chain of heartbreak. I turned off my phone and whispered, not this time. My mother called me down for breakfast again, humming the same tune she always did. Her warmth wrapped around me like a memory I never wanted to lose. Sweetheart, you're nervous about tonight, aren't you? She asked, pouring tea into my cup. I blinked. Tonight? The proposal. She smiled. You've been waiting for this day forever. You barely slept last night. My chest tightened. Right. The proposal. Her smile faltered slightly as she studied me. Is everything okay? I forced a smile. Yeah, I have a lot on my mind. She reached across the table, taking my hand. You're a good girl, Elena, and Adrian seems like a good man. But promise me something. I looked up at her. What? If love ever starts to hurt more than it heals, let it go. Promise me you'll choose yourself first. Her words hit me like a wave. She'd said the same thing before, in my past life, but I hadn't listened. This time, I nodded firmly. I promise. That day, I made my first choice. Instead of going to the salon and dress fitting for the proposal, I visited my father's old office, the place that would one day become my company, Windsor Holdings. The office was still dusty, barely functioning, but to me, it was a sanctuary. I ran my hand over the worn mahogany desk, the faint smell of old papers filling the air. This time, I whispered, I'll build it right. I won't give anyone the power to destroy it again. I found the business plans I'd once ignored, the ones that could have saved my company if I'd trusted my instincts. My past life's mistakes replayed in my mind clearer than ever. Now, I had the chance to fix them. I started making calls, reconnecting with early investors who'd once believed in me. Each word, each negotiation felt stronger, steadier. I wasn't the naive, love-blind woman anymore. I was the Elena who had died and learned what betrayal felt like. As evening fell, I found myself staring at the dress hanging on my closet door. The one I'd worn for the proposal in my past life. Pale blue silk, delicate, perfect. But tonight, I wasn't going. I pulled the dress back into its box and wore a simple white shirt and jeans instead. I tied my hair into a loose ponytail and stepped out into the night. The streets were alive with laughter and lights. I walked past the same garden restaurant where Adrian had planned the proposal. Through the window, I saw him, waiting at a table, bouquet of roses beside him, checking his watch. My heart didn't race this time. It didn't ache. I felt nothing. He looked as handsome as ever, confident, composed. The same man who once made me believe in forever. But I knew better now. He would marry me, cheat me, destroy me, and take everything I had. And I wasn't going to let that story repeat itself. So I turned and walked the other way. I spent the night sitting on the rooftop of my apartment building, staring at the stars. The city glowed beneath me, full of possibilities. Rebirth, I whispered. Maybe it's not about revenge. Maybe it's about rewriting the story. But deep down, a small part of me still burned with anger. Adrian had taken everything from me. My love, my trust, my dignity, and though I wanted peace, I couldn't forget the image of him standing beside Celine, smiling as if I'd never existed. He didn't deserve my hatred, but he didn't deserve my forgiveness either. The next morning, I began again. I met with a retired investor named Mr. Han, someone who'd once offered to partner with my father before the company fell apart. He remembered me fondly and agreed to help me set up a small consulting branch under my name. In just weeks, I had a modest office, a team of 2 assistants, and a new purpose. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I learned from every mistake of my past life. Where I once trusted easily, I now verified twice. Where I once hesitated, I now acted. And slowly, quietly, my new life began to bloom. But fate has a cruel sense of irony. 3 months later, at a charity gala I was invited to as a sponsor, I saw him again. Adrian, he looked exactly as I remembered. Perfectly put together in his black suit, surrounded by businessmen, that charming smile playing on his lips. Except this time, when his eyes met mine, something flickered. Recognition, confusion, and then curiosity. He approached me, confident as always. "Good evening," he said, his tone polite. I don't think we've met before. I'm Adrian Grayson. I smiled faintly. I know who you are. And you are. Elena Windsor. The name caught him off guard. Windsor, as in... The name caught him off guard. The first snow of winter fell quietly outside my apartment window. I stood there, watching flakes land softly on the glass, just like my heart once did on his cold promises, only to melt away without a trace. It had been 6 months since my rebirth. 6 months since I last saw Adrian. In this life, I avoided every path that once led to him. The company, the friends, even the old cafe where we used to share stolen smiles. But fate, as cruel as it can be, has a twisted sense of humor. Because one morning, he showed up again. I was in the conference room of my new company, presenting a project that had taken me months to build. The door opened mid-presentation, and in walked a tall man in a sleek suit. The kind of presence that made the air shift instantly. And there he was, Adrian Knight, the man I once called husband. The man who once told me, "Come home and be my wife." But standing beside him now was another woman, Lila, his new wife. The same woman he'd secretly brought into our home in my previous life. The woman he'd claimed was just a friend in need. My heart clenched, but I didn't falter. I'd promised myself that in this life, I'd never let him see me break. As he sat down, his gaze locked onto mine. His usual confidence seemed to waver, as if he couldn't believe I was standing there. Alive, composed, glowing in a life without him. I spoke clearly, my voice steady. Our proposal increases revenue by 28% while maintaining ethical production standards. Lila leaned over and whispered something to him. He nodded, but his eyes never left me. After the meeting, as people began to leave, he stayed behind. "Eva," he said quietly, "just my name," but it carried the weight of years. I turned to face him, expression unreadable. "Mr. Knight," I said coolly. "It's been a while." A flicker of surprise crossed his face. "Mr. Knight, that's formal." "I suppose that's what happens," I replied, "when people become strangers again." He gave a low, almost bitter laugh. "I never wanted to be strangers, yet you brought someone else home when you said you wanted me there," I said softly, the words cutting through the quiet like frost. His smile faltered. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "You wanted loyalty without love, obedience without question. I gave you all of that once. Never again." And I walked away. That night, I couldn't sleep. Even after everything, his voice still echoed in my mind. Not because I loved him still, but because it reminded me of the woman I once was. A woman who believed in second chances. A woman who waited by the door, hoping the man she loved would choose her. But this time, I wasn't waiting. I was living. Weeks passed. Adrian kept finding excuses to visit my office. Partnership discussions, joint projects, future collaborations. But I knew the truth. He wasn't there for business. He was there because he couldn't stand seeing me free. One afternoon, as I was reviewing files, he appeared again, unannounced. "You've changed," he said quietly. I didn't look up. "I grew up. You're colder now." "Only to the ones who taught me pain." He sighed and stepped closer. "I made mistakes, Ava. I won't deny that. But what we had was destroyed the day you brought her home." I cut in. His jaw tightened. "You really think I loved her?" "Does it matter?" I said, finally meeting his gaze. "Love doesn't erase betrayal. It doesn't heal the scars you left." For a moment, he looked genuinely broken. And yet, there was something in his eyes. Something that scared me more than his arrogance ever did. Regret, real, heavy regret. Later that evening, I met Liam, my colleague and quiet supporter. He'd been by my side through long nights, late projects, and quiet tears I thought no one saw. We shared dinner at a small rooftop cafe, the city lights glittering below. He smiled at me, his voice gentle. "You seem lighter lately," I smiled back. "Maybe I'm learning how to let go." Then, for the first time in both my lives, I laughed. Freely, genuinely. And as I laughed, I realized something. The universe didn't rebirth me to punish him. It rebirthed me to free me. But destiny, it seems, wasn't done weaving our fates together. Because just as I was finally learning peace, I received a message that would shake everything I'd built in this new life. It was from Adrian. "Eva, Lila's missing, and before she disappeared, she mentioned your name." My phone trembled in my hand as I read it. The past I thought I'd buried was clawing its way back. The notification still glowed on my phone screen. "Eva, Lila's missing, and before she disappeared, she mentioned your name." I stared at it for a long time, the words blurring as my heart began to race. Why would Lila mention me? I hadn't spoken to her once in this life. In fact, I had gone out of my way to avoid both of them. Yet somehow she'd vanished, and I was the last name on her lips. I tried to shake the unease. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe Adrian was desperate, trying to find someone to blame. But something inside me whispered otherwise. Because I remembered how Lila used to look at me in my past life. Not with hatred, but with something darker, guilt, fear. Could it be that in this life too, she had secrets? The next morning, my phone rang. "Eva!" Adrian's voice was hoarse, urgent. "Please, just meet me once. I need to talk to you. It's about Lila." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a small, quiet park, the same one where he once proposed to me, under cherry blossoms that had long since withered in my memory. When I arrived, he looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his usual confidence replaced by worry. "She's been missing for 3 days, he said. "No trace, no calls. The police think she left on her own, but before she disappeared, she sent me an email." He handed me his phone. The email subject read, "She knows." Inside, there was only one line. "Tell her the truth before it's too late." My fingers trembled as I read it. "Adrian, what truth?" He hesitated, jaw tightening. "There's something I never told you. Something about why I brought her home that night." I stared at him, my pulse quickening. "You mean the night you destroyed everything?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, that one." He ran a hand through his hair, eyes full of conflict. "Ava, when I brought her home, it wasn't because she was my lover. It was because she..." Before he could finish, his phone buzzed. He looked down, frowning. A new message. It was a photo of Lila, bound, gagged, in what looked like a dimly lit warehouse. My blood ran cold. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Is this..." "She's alive," Adrian said, his voice shaking. "But whoever has her, they know us. They sent this to me, but copied your number too." And then my phone buzzed. Same photo, same message. But this time, a caption was added. "Ava, come alone if you want the truth." Everything spun. It felt like fate had looped back, forcing me into another cruel game. One where love, betrayal, and destiny blurred into one terrifying knot. I looked up at Adrian. "I'm not going with you," I said firmly. "If this person wants me, I'll find out why. But you stay out of it." He grabbed my wrist, eyes wide. "Ava, no, it could be dangerous. Whoever's doing this is doing it because of something you started." I snapped. "I lived through one lifetime of your lies. I won't let your past destroy this one too." He stared at me, speechless. And then quietly, he said something that made my heart falter. "I don't deserve your trust, Ava. But please, if anything happens, don't face it alone." That night, I followed the address from the anonymous message. An old factory on the edge of town, broken windows, rusted gates. the smell of damp and dust filling the air. My flashlight flickered as I stepped inside. The air was eerily still. Every footstep echoed like a heartbeat. And then, I heard it, a faint sound, muffled sobs. I called out softly. The sobbing stopped. And a moment later, a voice answered from the dark. But it wasn't hers. Eva, you shouldn't have come. The light swung to reveal a man. Tall, half hidden in shadow. Eyes cold and familiar. It took me a second to recognize him. Ethan, Adrian's former business partner. In my past life, he'd disappeared after a scandal that nearly ruined the company. Adrian told me he'd fled abroad, but here he was. In this life, alive, and standing before me. Where's Lila? I demanded. He smiled faintly. Safe, for now. What do you want? Justice, he said. The truth Adrian buried. The one you were too blinded by love to see. What truth? I asked, my voice trembling. He took a step closer. Lila wasn't his lover, Ava. She was his pawn. Just like you. I froze. What are you talking about? Adrian and I built that empire together, he said, bitterness dripping from every word. But when I refused to help him cover up illegal transactions, he framed me. Lila was planted to manipulate you, to make sure you wouldn't talk. My mind spun. No, you're lying, he chuckled. Am I? Then why do you think you died in your last life, Ava? Why did your car brake fail that night? The air left my lungs. What do you mean? He smiled darkly. It wasn't an accident. My knees nearly buckled. The truth hit me like lightning. The night I died in that crash, I'd been leaving Adrian after one final fight. I'd thought it was fate, but what if it wasn't? What if it was him? I backed away, shaking my head. No, he wouldn't. Oh, he would, Ethan said. He did, and when Lila found out, she ran. That's why she's gone. My breath came in short gasps. If that was true, then everything, my love, my pain, my rebirth, had been built on a lie darker than I ever imagined. Before I could respond, headlights flashed outside. Adrian's voice echoed from the distance. Ava, don't move. He'd followed me. Ethan's face twisted in anger. You shouldn't have brought him here. He pulled something from his pocket, a small detonator. Let's see how much he's willing to lose this time. The timer on a nearby device began to blink red. 5, 4, 3. Adrian lunged in, grabbing my arm. Run! We barely made it out as the explosion ripped through the factory, flames lighting up the night sky. Outside, gasping for air, I turned to him. Tell me it isn't true, I said, tears streaming down my face. Tell me you didn't do it. Tell me Ethan's lying. He looked at me, silent, haunted, and didn't answer. That silence broke me more than any lie could. The night air was thick with smoke and grief. The factory burned behind us, glowing like the ghost of everything I'd once believed in. Adrian stood a few feet away, his shirt torn, his hand bleeding from broken glass. I couldn't stop staring at him. At the man I'd loved, the man I thought I knew, the man whose silence now screamed louder than any confession. Say something? I whispered, my voice cracking. Tell me Ethan was lying. He looked up slowly, his expression unreadable. Ava, it's not what you think. I laughed bitterly. That's what guilty men always say. He took a hesitant step toward me, his voice trembling. I never meant for you to get hurt. I swear. Then why didn't you deny it? I shouted. You stood there while he said you tried to kill me. He flinched as if my words had struck him physically. And still, he said nothing. The silence between us stretched painfully. Finally he muttered, You wouldn't understand. I took a step closer, my heart pounding. Then make me understand, Adrian. For once in your life, tell me the truth. His eyes met mine. Haunted, heavy. I didn't kill you, Ava, but I didn't stop it either. The world tilted. What do you mean? He looked away, his jaw clenched. That night, when you said you were leaving, someone tampered with your car. I found out minutes before the crash. But I hesitated. I thought maybe it was a bluff. You hesitated. My voice broke. You knew I could die and you hesitated. He nodded slowly, tears forming in his eyes. I was angry. You were walking away. I thought I'd have time to stop you. But I was too late. My body felt cold, my soul even colder. So you didn't kill me, I whispered. But you let me die. He closed his eyes, pained. I've lived with that guilt every day. When I found out you were gone, I couldn't breathe. I lost everything. My mind, my company, my purpose. That's why I brought Lila in. She knew the truth. She said she could help me find peace. If I helped her disappear. I asked softly. He nodded. She wanted a new identity. Said she couldn't live with what she knew. I thought it was guilt. I didn't realize it was fear. I stepped back, shaking my head. So now she's missing again. And this time it's tied to both of you. Do you even realize what this means, Adrian? He looked broken. It means the past isn't done punishing me. I turned away, wiping my tears. Punishment isn't what this is. It's consequence. He reached out as if to touch me, but I pulled away. Don't, I said coldly. You lost that right the night you chose silence over love. He lowered his hand, his voice barely above a whisper. I still love you, Eva. I almost laughed. Then your love is the kind that kills. And I walked away. This time without looking back. For days. I couldn't sleep. Every sound, every light, every reflection reminded me of the life I lost. And the one I was fighting to live now. Liam noticed my exhaustion one morning at work. Ava, he said gently. You've been zoning out all day. What's going on? I forced a smile. Just ghosts from my past. He studied me, concerned. You know, sometimes ghosts aren't meant to be fought. Just understood. His words lingered with me. Maybe understanding was what I needed. Not of him, but of myself. That evening, as I sat by the window, I thought about my rebirth. Maybe it wasn't just a second chance to live. Maybe it was a chance to face what I never dared to face before. The truth, no matter how painful. So I went digging. I contacted an old friend who worked in forensics. I asked her to retrieve the reports from my accident in my past life. A few days later, she sent me the results, and my hands went cold as I read them. The brakes had been tampered with, but not the way I thought. The fingerprints didn't belong to Adrian. They belonged to Lila. The revelation hit like a storm. All this time, I'd hated Adrian, feared him, blamed him, when the real hand behind my death might have been hers. But why? Was it jealousy? Revenge? Or was she trying to hide something even deeper? Before I could process it, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Stop digging, Ava, or you'll die twice. I froze, and then, for the first time in both my lives, I felt real fear crawl under my skin. The next day, Adrian showed up at my apartment, pale, shaken. Lila's car was found, he said. By the river, empty. Her phone was smashed. I felt a chill run down my spine. Did they find anything else? He nodded slowly. A note. He handed it to me. The handwriting was unmistakable. Lila's. It read, Ava deserves to know. I can't run anymore. Tell her about Project Seraph. I looked up sharply. What's Project Seraph? Adrian's expression turned grim. It was a secret division in our company, funded under the table. Lila and I started it. Before you ever knew, my heart pounded. What was it? He hesitated. A program to manipulate legal documents, money transfers, and identities. Identities, I repeated slowly. So that's how Lila planned to disappear. He nodded. Yes, but there's something you don't know. I stared at him, waiting. He took a breath. Ava, your rebirth might not be a miracle. It might be connected to Seraph. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. "What are you saying?" I whispered. He met my eyes, his voice low. "I think Seraph had experiments with memory, neural mapping, psychological triggers. If Lila was involved, she might have done something to you before your death." I backed away, my pulse racing. "You're saying my rebirth wasn't fate. It was manipulation." He nodded slowly. "And that's why Lila disappeared. Because she knew she went too far." The world blurred. My mind spun with disbelief. If that was true, then who was I really? I turned to the window, tears in my eyes. "I thought I came back to fix my mistakes," I whispered. "Maybe I came back to finish hers." Adrian stepped closer. "Ava, if we don't stop whoever's behind this, we might both end up dead again." I looked back at him. The man who had once been my everything, now just a shadow of his guilt. And in that moment, I made a silent vow. This time I wouldn't die for love. I'd fight for the truth. The night after Adrian's revelation, I barely slept. The word Seraph kept echoing in my mind, like a key scratching against a locked door I'd never meant to open. Project Seraph. The secret that tied us all together. Me, Adrian, and Lila. And maybe the reason I was reborn. The next morning, I sat in my office, staring at the files Adrian had given me. Most were encrypted, but one stood out, a document labeled Test Subject E07, E for Eva, 07, my birth date. My blood turned cold. I clicked it open. The screen flickered, revealing fragments of data, brainwave patterns, psychological profiles, and something called Memory Retention Experiment. At the bottom, a signature, Lila Grant, and under that, approved by Adrian Knight. My stomach dropped. The man I once trusted more than anyone had signed off on something that used me as an experiment. My phone buzzed. Adrian's name lit up the screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity and anger made me press accept. "Ava," his voice came through, rough with exhaustion. "You found it, didn't you? You mean the file that proves you experimented on me?" I said coldly. "It wasn't like that," he said quickly. "You volunteered." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Don't you dare twist this. You were dying," he said, his tone desperate. "You had a rare condition. Do you remember the fainting spells? The memory loss? Seraph was meant to save you. You agreed to it. You even begged us to proceed." I froze. Fragments of forgotten memories flickered in my mind. Faint echoes of pain, hospital lights, whispered voices. "I agreed," I whispered. "Yes," he said softly. "But it went wrong. The process wasn't stable. You started losing control. Paranoia, emotional outbursts. That's when Lila wanted to stop. But I didn't. I thought I could fix it. So you let me die." "I didn't let you die," he said, his voice cracking. "You were already fading. Lila took the data and vanished. I thought it was over, until you came back." I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady my breath. If what he said was true, then my rebirth wasn't mystical fate. It was the result of a scientific experiment gone horribly wrong. And yet, something still didn't fit. If I'd agreed to it, why didn't I remember? And why did Lila disappear now, right when I started uncovering it all? That evening, I received a new message. Unknown number again. "If you want the truth, come alone. The old observatory. Midnight." Attached was a short video clip. It showed Lila, alive, terrified, whispering into the camera, "Ava, if you're seeing this, they lied to both of us. Adrian didn't kill you, but he's not innocent either. Project Seraph wasn't about saving lives. It was about control. Don't trust anyone, not even yourself." Then the screen went black. The world tilted beneath me. Control. That word clawed through my mind like fire. What if my emotions, my rebirth, my choices We're all being influenced. What if Seraph didn't just bring me back? It programmed me. I needed answers. The observatory sat at the edge of the city, abandoned for years. The air was cold, the moonlight slicing through the shattered dome above. When I arrived, the place was eerily quiet. I called out softly, "Lila," no response. I took a few cautious steps forward, my heart pounding. Then a flicker, a light in the far corner. And there she was, Lila, disheveled, pale, but alive. When she saw me, her eyes filled with relief and fear. "Ava," she breathed. "You shouldn't have come. You called me," I said. "You said you had the truth." She shook her head, trembling. "They're watching everything. Seraph didn't die with us. It's still running. Inside you." I froze. "Inside me?" She nodded. "When you died, your brain was mapped. Every thought, every memory. The rebirth wasn't reincarnation, Ava. It was replication." Her voice cracked. "You're not the same Ava who died. You're a copy." The words shattered me. A copy. All this time, I thought fate had given me a second chance. A chance to fix what went wrong. But what if I wasn't even me? "What about you?" I whispered. She laughed bitterly. "I was the test supervisor. I injected the neural serum myself. When it worked, I panicked. I tried to destroy it, but Adrian wouldn't let me. He wanted to perfect it. That's when Ethan found out and tried to expose us. I ran before he could kill me. Ethan tried to kill you." She nodded weakly. "He wanted the technology. For himself. For profit. Seraph could rewrite identities. Make new ones. That's why I disappeared. But he found me again." Her eyes welled with tears. "He won't stop, Ava. Not until he controls you too." Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from behind us. Adrian's voice rang out. "Ava! Leela! He was here." Lila gasped. "No, he tracked you." A gunshot cut through the night. Lila screamed and collapsed. I dropped beside her, clutching her hand as blood spread beneath her. "Lila, stay with me." She looked up at me, trembling. "Seraph, code 971. Stop it." Before it, her eyes rolled back, and she went still. Adrian ran toward us, but I backed away, trembling. "Don't come closer," I shouted. "She's dead." He froze, his face pale. "Ever, I didn't shoot. Then who did?" I demanded. A voice echoed from the shadows. "Me." Ethan stepped forward, holding the gun, a smirk on his face. "Can't have her ruining my masterpiece, can I?" He looked at me with chilling amusement. "You really thought you were reborn, Ava? No. You're the final phase of Seraph, the perfect programmable soul, the one who could remember a life that never truly belonged to her." I shook my head, tears falling. "You're lying." "Am I?" He sneered. "Check your right wrist." I glanced down, and for the first time I noticed it. A faint mark, a small, almost invisible barcode beneath my skin. My knees gave out. Adrian stepped between us. "Ethan, stop this madness." "Madness?" Ethan shouted. "You stole my idea. You used her like a lab rat. But don't worry, I'll finish what you couldn't." He raised the gun again, toward me this time. Adrian lunged. The gun fired. The sound echoed through the observatory. And when the smoke cleared, Adrian was on the ground, blood spreading across his chest. I fell to my knees beside him. "No, Adrian, no," he coughed, his hand finding mine. "Ava, listen to me." Tears blurred my vision. "Don't talk. Please don't." "Stop, Seraph," he whispered. "Code 971. Shut it down. For both of us." And then, his hand went limp. I screamed. The echo of it carried through the empty night. Raw, hollow, endless. Because in that moment, I realized the cruelest truth of all. In both my lives, I had lost him. But this time, it wasn't betrayal. It was sacrifice. The night air was heavy. Thunder rolled across the city like a warning from above. I stood outside Adrian's house, the same house that once held my heart captive. The lights inside glowed dimly, the silence almost eerie. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at the front door. I had told myself I'd never return here, never step foot into this place where my love turned to ashes. But tonight, the past had demanded an answer, and I was finally ready to face it. When the door opened, Adrian was there, shirt slightly unbuttoned, eyes tired, shoulders tense. For the first time, he didn't look like the cold CEO everyone feared. He looked like a man who hadn't slept, who'd been haunted by more than his own mistakes. "Ava," he said softly, like he didn't believe I was real. I met his gaze. "You said you wanted to talk. I'm here. Say it." He stepped aside silently. I entered. Everything was just as I remembered. The grey marble floors, the scent of his cologne faintly in the air, the faint ticking of the clock above the fireplace. Except this time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel powerless. I felt calm. He poured 2 glasses of water. His hands trembled. "I found something," he said finally. "In Lila's phone. A recording." He pressed play. "If I disappear, it's because of him. He knows. He found out about the letter Ava's father left." I froze. My heart raced. "My father?" Adrian nodded, guilt washing over his face. "There's something I never told you, Eva. Back then, your father left you a letter before he passed." I took a step closer. "You what?" I hid it. His voice cracked. "It was meant for you, but Lila found it first. She said it could ruin me. I didn't stop her. I was a coward." I felt the air leave my lungs. All these years, all that pain, the confusion, the endless nights wondering why my father's last words never came. It was because of him. "Adrian," I whispered. "You took away my last chance to say goodbye to my father." He shook his head desperately. "I thought I was protecting you from pain." "No," I snapped, tears welling in my eyes. "You were protecting yourself. You were protecting your lies, your pride, your image." He fell to his knees, the sound echoing in the empty room. "I ruined everything. I know that now. Lila's gone. The company's falling apart. And you?" He looked up at me with tearful eyes. "You're the only thing I ever truly loved. But I destroyed you anyway." Silence hung heavy between us. The man who once broke me was kneeling before me, shattered himself. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to walk away. But another part, the wiser, reborn part, simply pitied him, because for the first time I realized he wasn't my villain anymore. He was just a broken man, haunted by his own choices. I knelt down beside him. "Adrian," I said softly, "there was a time when hearing you say those words would have meant everything to me. But now, I don't need your love to feel whole." He looked at me, confusion flickering in his gaze. "What do you mean?" "I mean I forgive you," I whispered. "But I don't want you back." His face twisted in disbelief. "You're walking away? After everything?" "Yes." I stood up, voice calm but steady. "Because forgiveness isn't an invitation, it's freedom. And tonight, I'm finally free." I turned toward the door. He grabbed my wrist. "Ava, please." I looked back at him, one final time. "Adrian, you said once, 'Come home and be my wife.' I did, and you brought another woman instead." My eyes softened. "But this time, I'm the one saying goodbye." And I walked out. The storm had started outside. Rain poured down as I stepped into the dark street. But it didn't feel cold anymore. I tilted my face up to the sky, feeling the rain wash over me. Every drop felt like the past being rinsed away. Behind me, through the window, I could see him, standing there, watching me disappear into the night. And for the first time in both my lives, I didn't look back. That night, I drove to the edge of the city where Liam was waiting. He stood under an umbrella, smiling softly when he saw me. "Rough night?" he asked gently. I nodded. "But it's over now." He opened the passenger door. Then let's go home, home. The word felt different this time. Warm, real, chosen. As we drove away, the rain eased, and I realized that love isn't about who claims you. It's about who stays when everything else falls apart. The following morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, soft and golden, touching every corner of the quiet room I now called home. It felt strange waking up in peace. No guilt, no pain, no ghost of the past whispering my name. But as I poured myself a cup of coffee, a message notification lit up my phone. It was from the police. We've recovered something during the investigation of Lila's disappearance. It's addressed to you. My heart skipped a beat. Addressed to me. At the station, they handed me a small weathered envelope. Cream-colored, sealed with wax. My name, Ava, written in my father's familiar, careful handwriting. The letter he wrote before he died. The one I was never meant to see. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single page, the ink slightly faded. My dearest daughter, if you are reading this, I am already gone, but I need you to know this. Love should never be a cage, no matter how gentle the hand that holds the key. I once trusted the knights. They promised to protect you, but I fear their kindness hides motives of their own. If they ever offer you security at the cost of your soul, walk away. Because true love, my daughter, is not something you beg for. It is something that meets you where you stand. Freely, equally. Be brave, Ava. The world will hurt you, but you are stronger than it. Father, I pressed the letter to my chest. Tears blurred the words. All this time, he had seen what I couldn't. All this time, he had tried to warn me, and I had walked straight into the arms of the man who betrayed him. Later that evening, I met Liam at the park. He saw my expression and knew something had changed. What did it say? He asked quietly. I handed him the letter. It told me what I already knew, but was too blind to accept. He read it silently, then looked up at me with gentle understanding. You're not that woman anymore, Eva. I smiled faintly. No, I'm not. We sat in silence for a while, watching children run across the field, laughter echoing through the air. It hit me then. I'd been given something my father never had. A second chance. A rebirth not just of life, but of meaning. And maybe that was the real gift of coming back. That night, as I was preparing for bed, a knock echoed at the door. When I opened it, Adrian stood there. He looked worn out, sleepless, haunted. I found it, he said quietly. The other half of the letter. He handed me a torn fragment. Same paper, same ink. If this reaches the wrong hands, it may cause pain. But truth, my daughter, is always better than silence. Remember, the past repeats only when lessons go unlearned. Adrian's eyes were wet. I learned Eva, the hard way. I ruined your life. And when I lost you, I thought it was my punishment. But seeing you now, his voice broke. You're the woman I fell for. Stronger, freer, brighter than I ever deserved. I looked at him, sadness in my heart, but no hate. You're right, I said softly. You don't deserve me, but I'm still glad you learned. He smiled faintly through his tears. I'm leaving the city, he said. Starting over. Maybe that's what I should have done long ago. I nodded. Then I hope your next life, even if it's just tomorrow, teaches you to love without hurting. He gave a short laugh, half broken. Goodbye, Ava. And this time it was he who walked away first. After he left, I went to the balcony. The night sky shimmered with stars. The same stars that had watched over me when I wished for him to love me. And now they felt like silent witnesses to my release. I whispered, "Thank you, Father. I understand now." Because love wasn't about clinging to what was broken. It was about finding peace in what still stood. Weeks passed. The investigation concluded. Lila had fled the country, desperate to escape the consequences of her actions. Her disappearance wasn't a crime. It was a confession, and Adrian, true to his word, left everything behind. His empire, his fame, all gone. Sometimes I'd see his name in the news, attached to stories of redemption and rebuilding, and I'd smile, not with longing, but with closure. One evening, Liam and I visited my father's grave. I placed the letter there gently, letting the wind carry away my final tears. "Dad," I whispered, "I think I finally understand what you meant. I don't want love that cages me. I want love that lets me fly." Liam's hand found mine, warm, steady, real, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was living a borrowed life. I was living my life. As we walked away, I looked back one last time. The sunset painted the sky in hues of gold and rose, the same colors of my first wedding dress. But now they didn't symbolize loss. They symbolized rebirth, because love lost me once. But this time, I found myself. The morning sun spilled through the curtains like a promise. For the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't wake with a sense of dread or a memory of betrayal. I woke with clarity. I stretched, took a deep breath, and smiled. A real, unburdened smile. The world outside buzzed as it always did, indifferent, alive. And I realized I was ready to be indifferent too. Not cruel, not cold, just free. Liam entered the room quietly, a tray of coffee in hand. "Good morning," he said softly. "Good morning," I replied, my voice lighter than it had been in years. He smiled, as if he knew I had crossed some invisible threshold. "You're different today," he said. "I am," I admitted. "I've stopped letting the past define me. I've stopped letting other people's mistakes control my heart." He nodded. "And your heart?" I smiled at him. "It's mine to decide, always mine." I stepped outside onto the balcony, the cool breeze brushing my face. The city sparkled below, alive with the chaos and beauty of life. I thought of Adrian, his sacrifices, his failures, and his love. I thought of Lila, her fear, her secrets, and the chaos she unleashed. I thought of my father, the guiding light I had nearly forgotten, and I thought of myself. This was my story, not theirs, not fate's, not revenge's, mine weeks past. I rebuilt my life slowly but surely. No more hidden experiments, no more shadows of betrayal. I started volunteering at the community center, helping young women find their voices. I immersed myself in art, painting the emotions I couldn't always speak, and Liam stayed. Not because he had to, not because he felt guilty, but because he chose to. Every single day, one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood at the edge of the lake where I had once cried over lost love. I looked at the rippling water and whispered, "Love tried to break me." And it did, but it also taught me strength. Pain tried to stop me, and it almost did, but it also taught me courage. And betrayal tried to define me, but I refused. I am reborn, not by fate or chance, but by the choices I make. I felt the wind on my face, carrying away the weight of everything I had endured. For the first time, the world felt vast and open, not dangerous or confining. That night, I received a message from Adrian. "I hope you are truly happy, Ava. You deserve it." I smiled and didn't respond, because happiness isn't a reply. It's a life you live, fully and without regret. I turned off my phone, looked at Liam, and took his hand. The stars above mirrored our smiles. I didn't need magic or experiments. I didn't need apologies or explanations. I had my freedom. I had my life. And I had someone who loved me as I was. Fully, freely, completely. As we walked home under the soft glow of the moon, I whispered to myself, rebirth isn't just coming back to life. It's coming back to yourself. And now, I am truly alive. The wind carried my words across the quiet city, and for the first time, they felt like a declaration, not a hope, because I had survived love, betrayal, death, and lies, and emerged stronger, wiser, unbroken. The night was peaceful. The stars shone brightly, and I walked forward, free at last. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you in the next one. Peace out.